Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for joining. Just before we start, if you do find this video useful and you get a lot of it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, because that helps me a lot to create more videos and bring them to you so you can also learn with me. Basically, what I'm going to be teaching today is how we can create a really detailed ground using PBR materials that is not going to break our scene in terms of performance. So here we have a scene that I'm working on. You see that we have a bunch of cars, have a lot of ground planes, and basically the ground itself is quite detailed. So you see here that even on the solid mode, we already see that the PBR material is coming on top of it and so on and so forth. So that's basically what we are going to be learning today. Let me just go here on the render view so you can see how it's looking. We need a bit more light here, so I'm just going to remove the road lighting and then push the strength of my HDRR. Let's put something like this. And you basically see here the detail that I have with the bricks and the dust on top of my ground, the car, so on and so forth. We are going to actually start by jumping on Mixer. So Quixel Mixer is a free software, quite easy to use. And the reason why we are going to be using Mixer in this case is because we are going to be mixing the displacement of our ground between multiple materials and pushing into our plane, but not by using here the material, the shader itself. So here, when we come here and we go to the object and create a shader, we can plug in the displacement and do all the mixing of the displacement here inside Blender. But that not only makes our material super heavy, but also we cannot use something that we are going to be using here, which is the displace modifier. And that is going to be the game changer part of our workflow. So let's just start coming here on Quixel. Don't worry if you never played around with Quixel, it's free, it's going to be quite easy to work with. And you see, if you used Photoshop before, it's also like a layer-based type of material. So it's quite simple to get your head around it. So first, let's come here on online. Let's look at all the surfaces that we have available. You can use the surfaces from Quixel, or you can just use the surfaces from your own materials. You just need to then come here and add a new layer. There's going to be this solid layer. One second. Oh, sorry, on top here. Solid layer, and you just add all the different maps here. But let's just start with Quixel. So that's going to be easier. So let's choose a ground here. I'm going to choose a stone ground. Something that is going to be quite nice to look at with the displacement. It's downloaded. I'm going to push here to our layers. And first things first, I'm going to come here on the setup, and I'm going to actually change this to 10 meters by 10 meters. Why is that? Because I want to make sure that when I create this ground, I create something that is big enough for the tiling and also to place a character and see this really detailed ground on top of it. So at the moment, let's look. It's looking quite all right. I think the size also is quite all right, but I just want to change a little bit, a few things. So repetitions actually. Let's put 3 so I can see more of the pebbles, make them look more like rocks, a bit bigger. And here again, you just play around the way you want. No worries about that. Here we can work with the strength of our displacement. I think something like this is quite fine. I'm gonna duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D, and then I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna rotate 90 degrees. Okay, and then now I'm gonna come here on height blending. I'm gonna make this one a bit higher. You can see that it's kind of like we are pushing one above the other. So I'm gonna make it a bit higher, like so, and then I'm gonna push the strength of the displacement a bit down. Also make wrap to underlining like this. Blur, let's blur because it's a new rock texture on top of the other one. Basically what I'm breaking here is a bit of the tiling that might show up. In this case, we don't see it much because of this texture that we are using. But whenever you're using one that shows a clear tiling, you can use this technique. And then you just need to add a mask on top. So let's come here, let's push a Worldly mask. I'll press 9 here on my keyboard to see just the mask itself. And I'm gonna play around with the mask. So like this, push the octaves. Clarity, no. Persistence, something like this. Frequency down. Okay, that's enough for now. I'll press 1 and then we can see here basically before and after. So we're kind of filling the gaps of a few parts of our surface here. And lastly, let's add our snow on top of it. So I'm gonna put here the snow. All right, so right now we are using the height to blend between them. Okay, so I'm gonna bring the height up a little bit. Oh, it's freeform actually. I want tiling. Press tiling and then repetitions. 2 should be all right actually. So we see more of this texture. So let's come down here. Let's come to displacement. Let's see the strength. Actually, I don't want that. I'm just going to use the displacement to push the snow really, really high. Then I can push the height a bit down and then wrap to underlining. Remove the blur. Now we need to actually fix this. This was a bad idea. Bring the height up. Height up. Remove a bit this and something like this should be all right. Strength 1 is okay. Blur underlining. Let's push it a little bit. Then this one also push a little bit. And now let's just play with the height. Then if you want to remove actually the snow a little bit from the top, let's add a mask here. Let's use the curvature. So let's press 0 again. I'm gonna use the cavities one. Tightness. Okay, and I'll come back here and now we see that the snow is mostly in between the rocks, but it's not looking that great. So we need to just adjust here a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna do that by placing a blur. You guys Gaussian blur, strength, something like this. But then we are losing kind of like the texture of the snow. So we come here, see it's more gray than white. So I'm going to just clamp it by using a gradient remap. Push it to something like this. Nice. Now it's quite good, I would say. I like the way the texture is looking. I'll push a little bit down and remove the wrap underline. So that's basically it. We have our texture ready. Now let's just come to bring this to Blender and see how we are going to actually displace this and create this high quality material. So 4K is more than enough. I'll click export to the disk and then I'll be exporting. Here I already have this folder, which is this Blender at /Quixel Mixer. That's where all my texture go. So now we are going to come back here on Blender. Let's create our plane and let's make sure that the size is the same that we had on Mixer. So 10 meters, I'll press Ctrl A, apply all, and now let's start with the displacement itself. So we're going to start with one subdivision, simple, 6, then add another one on top, simple, and I'm going to put 3. Potentially, actually, let's start with 4, because I know that potentially we are going to be adding 4, and then I'm gonna come here, and I'm gonna create material, so our ground with snow. And then lastly, I'm gonna add here the displace. Okay, so here I'm gonna create one. So ground, I'm gonna call this texture ground. And before we start, I'm just going to come here on Principal BDSDF, Ctrl Shift T, Node Angler Add-on that you might have heard everywhere. So let's just come here and choose everything, and I'll not choose the metalness because we don't need that. Open this. I don't like this actually, so I'm going to press X to remove this, and I'm going to remove this also by press Ctrl X. Okay, so we have our displacement here. I'm not going to use it like this. I'm just going to remove also the displace. I'm gonna copy the name here of my texture, and I'm going to search it here, and then I'm going to open it here. So see here we have our ground texture, and the mapping repeats. But repeat makes it things a bit weird. So let's just clip, see how we get. Didn't get 2 by 2. So actually what I'm going to do is something different. It's good that we got into this error. That means that I need to change my dimensions back to 2 meters by 2 meters. Okay. And then we come here to displace 0.02. Let's take a look. See how it's looking. Okay, and then let's go to the render mode. See how it's looking. So we have here the snow and the pebbles, but it seems like we're still pushing too much with our displacement. I'm gonna come here, 0.2. Nice. Quite all right. Let's actually apply all. So now we can push the strength up. .45 might give us what we want. It's a bit more than what we had on Quixel, but it kind of looks alright, huh? Okay, I like it. There's just a difference that is higher between the snow and the rocks. So let's just push it down a little bit. So 0.4. Okay, that's nice. Gonna right click, shade smooth. Okay, and there we have. And what I'm going to do now, that's where we are going to actually start optimizing the texture. First, we already optimized because we are just using one texture at 4K instead of multiple textures and combining them. So that's already really good for us. Second thing is that we are going to apply all the subdivision and the displacement. So I'm going to right click, convert to, and choose mesh. Then you see our mesh has like 1 million verts. That's quite a lot. So what we're going to be doing actually is going to click here on decimate. I'm going to put 0.2. And this is going to make our vertices go down to around 200k vertices, which is going to make things way nicer and smoother to work with. And you see that the quality almost is not impacted at all. See here, it's still looking good, looking fresh. So I'm just going to convert to mesh again. So now the decimated will take place. And you see here right now the memory is at 2.25 gigs, which is quite a lot. But that is mainly because our mesh is just like super high density, super high poly. And by decimating, we can still decimate more. Here's just a game of adding decimates till you see that more or less the quality stays the way that you want. But we decimate it again. I'm just going to click Control Save here. Let's just save here on this folder. It's not a big problem. Then we come here, external data, and unpack resources. Okay, there we go. Now we have 200k of vertices. That's nice. I'm going to just remove and purge the things that I'm not using. Come back here to the layer. And then what we can do to push the quality even further is add a bump map. Okay, so let's come here, bump. Oops. Shift A, search, bump, add the bump, normal to normal, displacement to height, and then we push it here. Right now it's too strong, both layers, that's why you're seeing everything in black, but I'm going to push it just to 0.2, and then also the strength here to around 0.2, and now I can just play around with the strength here on the normal. Something like this. Maybe even less, like 0.8, and then I'll change the strength here to 0.4. Let's see. Oops, it didn't end. 0.3 and then 0.4. And then here from far away would still look like there's a lot of detail, right? Especially because we just added this extra bump on top of our texture. But that's basically it. Our texture is finalized. Let's just add a light here, some lamp here, so we can play around a little bit with the lighting, see how it's looking, something like this. Then come to our camera, activated it here. And let's quickly render and see our final result. All right, so there you go. Here's our final result. This is our ground plane. You see there's a lot of detail. The displacement, it's really, really nice. And not only that, but this displacement will also be working on Eevee, which is great if you're playing around with Eevee. And also you see the displacement happen even on solid mode. So you see what kind of texture you have there. So that's basically it for now. I hope you find this useful. Please, if you test that, if you upload something, just tag me in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and I'll see you on the next one.